Hello everyone and welcome back. In this lesson, I'm going to show you how to use some of the selection tools in ArcGIS. In past lectures, we used the interactive selection tool, this one here, to select features and do just basic things with them, but we're going to learn how to use a few more tools that relate to selections in ArcGIS. Namely, I'm going to show you how to use the Select by Attributes tool to select features on your map by specifying values that should be in the attribute table. In doing this, I'll also show you just a little bit of how to structure queries to select parts of your data. And then we'll finish off by adding another field to your data set and calculating the geometry of a feature and placing that value into the field. Selections are one of my favorite parts of GIS in general, and I use them every day. Almost anytime I touch GIS, selections are a part of it. So this is a really core exploration tool, but it's also where we're really going to dig in and start to be able to answer some questions with GIS. Up until now, we've mostly just viewed and explored data, but by writing selection queries or by using the other selection tools, we can answer questions about how things relate to each other or which features have certain characteristics. This is the power of GIS starting to materialize. So to get started though, I'm going to do something kind of mundane, and I'm going to change the color that selections appear in, since there's so much blue on the map already. If you remember from past lectures, the selection color tends to be a light blue, and there's a lot of blue on the map, so let's make it something that we could see a little better. So I'll go to the selection menu, and then go to selection options, and down here in the selection tool settings, it has the choose the color you want selected features to be shown with by default. I'm just going to change that to a red. That way we could see our features on the map when we select them. I'll click OK. I don't have anything selected, so there's nothing to update, but when we select features, they'll be in red now. Now, to start with, I have kind of a basic question. I know that somewhere in here are rivers named the Sacramento River, and I want to figure out which ones they are. Now, I could do this interactively and go to the attribute table and sort the records and then go find the records in there that have the name Sacramento River in there, but we're going to use the Select by Attributes tool instead. It makes it a little easier and a little more powerful. So I'm going to go up to the selection menu and I'll choose Select by Attributes, and this dialog box pops up. And the first parameter here is to select the layer we want to create a selection on. So I don't want to do it on the counties layer. I want to do it on my rivers layer. And under method, it's offering to do a few things, and none of these really apply yet except create a new selection. But if we had an existing selection active, we could just add to it now. And as you use them more, you'll find new opportunities to use things like that. But for now, we'll just choose create a new selection. And then we're going to build a query. And if you watched one of the previous lectures, you'll recognize this box from the definition query window. It's the exact same format we're writing a database query right now. Don't let that scare you though, because this is going to make it really easy, and it's going to show you all the information you need to make your decisions, even if you don't know how to work with databases already. So down here again, this is the query we're writing, but up here it gives us controls to make our own queries easily. And what I want to do is I want to find all of the river segments that are part of the Sacramento River. So I'm going to look through this box and find the name field here. And if I double click, it pops down here. And the great thing about using the double click option there is that if I was less familiar with writing these queries, I wouldn't have to know the syntax, which is the punctuation and formatting of the query in order to write it. It helps me do it when I double click and use these controls here. The one other thing to note is that depending upon how your data is stored, these queries are structured a little differently. So sometimes that'll burn me and I end up using these controls anyway, even though a lot of times I can just write my query directly in here. So we want to find the river segments where their name is equal to the Sacramento River. So I'll select the equals sign now, where the name equals. And I'm not exactly sure how it's going to be spelled. Maybe sometimes it's not spelled Sacramento River, or maybe there are a few misspelled segments or something. So I'm going to click Get Unique Values. And what ArcGIS does is it looks through the field that I have highlighted up here and gives me all of the potential values in this box here. And I can scroll down and keep trying to find it. But in this case, I'm going to start just clicking the box and I'll type Sacramento here. And that'll get me pretty close to it. And I can see that there's Sacramento River and Sacramento Slough, but no misspellings or odd other ones here. So I'll just double click Sacramento River and I'll get added to the box down here. Now, if I click apply, it runs my selection and I can see a large part of the Sacramento River appear in red here. So I'll click close now, and I want to see exactly how big this segment is. So I'm going to right click on rivers, and I'll go to selection and zoom to selected features. And that zooms me out just as far as I need to show me the whole selection. That way I don't have to do a guessing game of zooming out on my own. Now, I happen to know that we missed a couple tributaries to the Sacramento River, some small rivers that feed into it in the headwaters that are also named Sacramento River, but they have slight variants of it. So let's do a new query to find those rivers. So I'm going to go to selection, select by attributes again, and this time I'm going to do method add to current selection. I could do either one, but we'll do add to current selection. But I'm going to write a new query, and I'm just going to change this one slightly. So instead of where it's equal to Sacramento River, I want ArcGIS to search and help me out a little bit. I want it to tell me when a name similar to Sacramento River is used, or when Sacramento River is part of the name, but it might not be the complete name. So it's not equal to it, it's similar to it. And in this case, I just need to do like, so GNIS name like, and then I need to put a little special % operator here. That's similar to an asterisk in some other languages. It's a wildcard. It says GNIS name like anything followed by Sacramento River. So we could have like Upper Sacramento River or something like that. And it's going to match attributes that are filled in with a value similar to that. So before we run that, I'm going to do a quick zoom in on the Upper Sacramento River here. And I'll move this box slightly over. And if I now click apply, I see that I get 3 more segments added to my selection here. So let me close this out and let's take a look at those segments. If I use the identify tool, I can click on them and see that, oh, that's the Middle Fork Sacramento River. So it ended in Sacramento River, but the Middle Fork matched that wildcard character I put in my selection. Okay, let's zoom back out again, and I'll use the zoom to selection again, since that took me out about to where I'd like to look at as an overview. And I'm going to clear my selected features here. And just to show that we're doing the same thing that we were doing with the definition query, let's try a really similar query to what we had before, and one that allows us to ask a question. So we'll go back to select by attributes, and we'll still use the rivers layer. And what I want to know is where the rivers have a drainage area greater than 10 square kilometers, say. We're only looking at the ones that are greater than 5 square kilometers, but what about the ones that have more than 10 square kilometers upstream? So what we're going to do is we're going to completely remove this current query, and instead I'm going to add that different field that we used before, the total drainage area square kilometers. I'll double click it, and I'll type in greater than 10. And one thing I need to be really careful about here is it says add to current selection. So I'm just going to do create a new selection from now, just to be extra careful about this. And if I click apply, it's going to run the selection, and we can see that there's some blue in the background there that's not being selected. So we are selecting a subset of these rivers already. But what if I still think that this is too many rivers to look at? So let's do greater than 100. And this is where that create a new selection comes in. If I did add to current selection, everything currently selected would stay selected, but only things that are newly selected would be added. In this case, it's going to erase the current selection and add a new one. And I'll click apply again. It's going to run that selection and give me far fewer rivers this time. When I click apply, it runs the selection and leaves the window open as you just saw. But if I clicked OK, it would run it again for me and then close the window. Okay, let's do one more thing while we're working with select by attributes. There are a lot of rivers named Deer Creek in California for some reason, and I'd like to know how many kilometers of streamline there are named Deer Creek. So let's clear this selection, and I'll go to selection, select by attributes again, and I'm going to use the name field one more time, and we'll clear this out, add the name field, and I'm going to get unique values. It's going to populate it again, and I'll put in Deer Creek, which let's just scroll down to it here. So Deep Creek, not quite right, Deer Creek. So name equals, and then Deer Creek, and I'm going to click apply again. And we get a bunch of these scattered rivers all around here. And I want to summarize them somehow. So let's look at the attribute table. I'm going to switch to selection, and it says that there are 271 stream segments, not actual distinct streams named Deer Creek, but stream segments in California. And if I scroll to the right, it gives me a shape length field already, but that's in decimal degrees, and that's really hard to conceptualize and is really difficult to convert to something like kilometers. And that's why we have ArcGIS do it for us. So if I want to see how many kilometers it is, I'm going to add a new field and then calculate the value in kilometers into that field. So I'm going to go up to the table menu and I'm going to select add field, and I'm going to put in length in kilometers. And I'm going to need a double precision value. It's a decimal value here. So I'm going to select that and I'll click OK. And just like we saw last time, we now have a new field populated with null values here with length kilometer. And if I right click on it and go to calculate geometry, I get the opportunity to calculate different aspects of these features. It's going to use the feature information and give me these different parts of it. And then it gives me the opportunity to select what coordinate system to use. You aren't familiar with coordinate systems yet, but we're going to go over those very soon. So right now I'm just going to use the coordinate system of the data frame that I have this in, and I want to select in units of kilometers. So what it's going to do is it's going to calculate the length in kilometers for me, and it's going to populate each record with the value of that feature in kilometers. So I'll click OK. It's running it just for the selection again. Since I just have 271 records selected, it ran it just for those. We can sort by size here. So I'll sort it descending and see that we have a 14 kilometer stream segment here, an 11 kilometer stream segment, and so on. But what if I want to know the total amount with our newly created field? I can right click on it and I can go to statistics, and it'll pop up a box for me and it'll tell me some basic statistics, including the sum. So I can see that California has about 466 kilometers of stream named Deer Creek. So now I'll close that out and close the attribute table out. And that's all I'm going to show you for this lecture, but I think you'll find a lot of use for those two tools, the Select by Attributes tool and the Calculate Geometry tool. In this lecture, I showed you how to create selections using the Select by Attributes tool, both with exact parameters and also by using partial matches. I also showed you how to add new fields and calculate geometry into them. In the next lecture, we're going to continue right where we left off here, and we're going to use the Select by Location tool instead to answer questions about how things relate to each other in space. These tools are really powerful when used together, so I hope you'll join me to learn about Select by Location in the next lecture. See you there.